Hi, welcome to the quick video capture and editing tutorial. My name is Brian Zayas. We're going to spend 40 minutes together in this video. The first 8 minutes are going to be all about capturing, setting your background scene, your lighting, and your camera. We're then going to transition to 30 minutes of editing, syncing the clips together, making basic cuts, white balance, color correction, as well as a few other tips and tricks. Let's get started with the basic setup to get ready to capture live video. All right, we got to film a video, but as you can see, the set is pretty messy. So, step one when making a video, clean up your background. But remember, number one rule of thumb when it comes to video production, all that matters is what is seen and heard on the screen when it's finished. So, with that in mind, let's set up a set so the background looks a little bit more professional. Pretty cool 3D print. Stuff like this, you gotta make a decision. Does it add gravitas for your background? In my case, maybe, but not for this video. And this is the absolute worst when you have to rewire something, but in the long run it's worth it to make sure you have a clean setting. Here's an important decision point. Do I want to have my monitor in the shot? Now, if I'm going to be showing software, it is nice to have SolidWorks or whatever software we're showing up on the screen, if only to do a B-roll shot. For example, me modeling, seeing the screen over my shoulder or something like that. Make sure if you're going to have the monitor in the shot, it's properly exposed. In this case, my monitor is up to 100% brightness for regular use, but if it's going to be in the shot, turn the brightness down. Of course, it's going to look dark to you, but to the camera, it's going to look even with the rest of the background, so it'll expose properly. Also here I have my Yeti mic with a pop filter. It's on a spring-loaded stand. This is great for doing voiceovers, but of course I don't want it in my shot. I have it over at the side here, so what I can do is put it just out of scene and allow me to capture decent vocals if I'm going to be standing here and hosting or driving the software. It might be a little bit in the frame, so I might move it over to another mounting location. Okay, we're getting there. I don't think I want the monitor for this shot. I'm gonna be doing more of an introduction, maybe hosting a landing page video or something, so let's kind of sneak that down there. Let's set the scene here, and here I'm using a pretty wide lens. In fact, I can go all the way back to 10, but that's pretty much a fisheye effect. So let's frame it in just to get nice background of the acoustic tiles. Okay, let's take a look and see how this looks on the camera. Not too bad, but the angle is a little bit too high on me here, so let's bring the camera down a little bit. And let's see how that looks. Looking at the preview here. Yeah, not too bad. Maybe zoom up a little bit more. A little bit above, looking down, how does that look? Before we film, let's talk about lighting. Now, the first thing we're going to do is make sure that I have all the lights that I need to accomplish a basic 3-point lighting. You can already see one kind of behind me. That's the backlight or the hair light. It shines down, it's about half as bright as my key light, and it separates me from the background, so hopefully adds some depth, adds a silhouette around my figure. But let's talk about the other lights real quick. Up here, this is a fluorescent, cool white fluorescent, and this is my key light. This is the primary light that's, we'll call 100% power, and it's hitting me on the right side of my face. Okay, it's about 45, and in this case about 30 degrees off the camera. Over here is the fill light. It's half the intensity of the key light, and it's basically filling in the shadows. Here's the backlight I mentioned in between the two. Of course, I'm lucky enough to have a tall ceiling to hang these down, but hopefully in office you can fit some in the top. Here's my desk light that's on, and notice it's slightly warmer. It's a different temperature, so I'm going to turn that off. You don't want to mix color temperatures. I have my regular ceiling light. We're going to keep that thing off. Again, if I turn it on, you can see the mixing of colors. You know, it actually adds a little bit of warmth, but in this case, we're going to leave it off. Now, it's a little bit dark sometimes in here, even with the 3 lights, so I do have an LED panel light. And this thing I got off Amazon for about 25 bucks from China, and it sometimes works. Okay, there we go. So this thing's pretty bright. And the important part is an adjustable setting. It's at 50 right now, which is way too bright. In fact, let me leave it there and let me take a quick shot with my SLR and we'll see what that looks like. What I'm doing here is just setting up a quick object, set the focus point on the camera representing kind of where my body's going to be. So I'll manually set the SLR till it's in focus. And then let's go ahead and let's make a cut. At the beginning of every filming, what you want to do is also hold up a white card or a gray card. Again, you can get these on Amazon for just $10, and this helps you set the white balance once you're in the video editing in post-processing. So just hold it up in the lighting that you're going to be in. And take a look at this lighting. What you can see is that my key light with the panel is probably a little bright. You're probably seeing a huge shadow. You're probably seeing some reflection on the glasses. One benefit of having the lights raised, it won't reflect on the glasses. But this is probably a little bit bright. So let me turn the lighting down and show you what the difference is. Okay, so now my LED auxiliary key light is a little bit lower, and you can maybe see the effect on the face. Hopefully it's a little more flattering. It doesn't seem as bright. It seems just a tiny bit brighter than my regular key light. So this is good for normal 3-point, just standard lighting. Let me also though turn it up and show you what happens if you have too much light on the side. So I think that's a full blast, and now you're probably seeing a very distinct shadow. So if we were making some dramatic film, this might be good. But in most cases, make sure you're cognizant of how much light you have on this side versus the fill side. You don't want to have too many shadows. Okay, I'm going to position my microphone, my voiceover microphone, just out of scene. Also, it helps a little bit better if you have a little more money than trying to get your USB microphone just off stage, is getting a nice lapel mic, right? That'll capture a much better sound. About 24 inches off scene the microphone would be, so you're gonna get a lot of room reverb. It's okay, it's just a little spacier sound than you typically want in a video intro. So that's about it. Welcome to making great video content. I hope you enjoy. Okay, so I've copied off all my raw data. I have 3 video files from the GoPro, audio from an external audio recorder, and then the DSLR camera that we made as our production shot. I'm going to use Premiere Pro to stitch these all together. Go ahead and start a new project and bring in all my media into my project. Now the first thing you have to do is create a sequence, and the sequence kind of controls what the final output is going to be. My final output I want to be my 1920 by 1080 DSLR footage, so I kind of want that one to dominate the format. So I'm going to create a new sequence from that one right there. But of course, in this video that I'm going to make for you guys, that's going to be a long way towards a lot further down the end. Okay, I'm also going to drag in all my GoPro footage, and you see the video is about 28 minutes or so. And what I like to do here is find a master track. This I'm going to sync up later, the DSLR footage. I also have an audio recording from a separate audio track. And notice it's a little bit shorter. So I like to have one capturing device be the master along the timeline, and then I'm going to sync to that my other feeds, and then we'll start to cut once they're all aligned. And what really makes this easy is if you look at the audio waveforms. So let's expand this. And if you start recording at about the same time, this is a lot easier. And look for where it looks like the audio signals match up. Alright, so we're going to try and line up the audio by looking at the waveforms, and you can see that we pretty much matched where they're supposed to go. And now I'm just going to incrementally zoom in until I have it perfectly lined up. And again, we're matching the onboard GoPro audio with the outboard audio recorder that has a lot better quality. And then we're going to play them back, make sure we have the right lineup. Alright, we got to film a video, but as you can see, it's pretty close, but we can zoom in more and just really match those up. Alright. So it looks like that's about where I'm going to start introducing the video. So at this point, trim all this excess out, get rid of that junk, and do a little ripple delete, take that back to the first part of this timeline. Okay, so with this lined up, we can see the audio is all good there. Okay. Let's also line up that DSLR before we start cutting, and it gets a lot harder to match up our footage. This is on its own track, and bring this in, and where do we start recording that? So there I'm holding the white card. Here I'm about holding the white card, so that should be pretty close. Again, we'll go in and line up the audio waveforms to do the exact. Yep. Always look for distinct forms, and if you're really thinking ahead, I didn't this time, you could make a distinct form with a tone or a certain clapping pattern. At the beginning of every filming. There we go. Okay, so now all the video tracks are synced to kind of this master track right here. So I'm going to mute those, and the only audio I'm actually going to produce is my audio recorder with the best quality. Great, let's save this bad boy. So now we have our video, but it's 28 minutes of junk. A lot of junk. So what we got to do is trim it up, make it neat, and also do a little bit of white balance. So what I'm going to do to set the white balance is actually go all the way forward. And again, I'm going to do this before I start cutting, so I don't have all these clips that I got to go back and apply this to. But let's go back and let's find that place where I held up the white card. And I like to do this kind of maintenance stuff right away. And I'm going to find the fast color corrector. It's a great way to do basic white balance. I'm going to drag it onto my DSLR footage, drag it onto my GoPro footage, and let's set the DSLR first. So I'm highlighting this clip right here. Go to my effect controls, white balance, and just go ahead and click on that gray right there. Notice that difference. Let me do that again. Undo it, and do it again. Okay? So it can be gray, it can be white, and what you'll notice it does is it sets the color more towards the skin tone. And if we want to get technical, let's turn on the scopes, and these actually show me which color direction I am outputting. So check this out. Let's turn the color correction off and on. And notice how it's very subtle, the shift. But if I take the control manually and move it out, notice I'm really shifting the color towards that red-yellow spectrum. These lines represent the broadcast limits, or basically 100% saturation. So as this reaches 100 in red, you can see I'm at 100 in red over here. So you can mess around with this, of course, manually, but really the skin tone line is right around here next to the red. And it's best to hold up the gray card because then you can just manually set it. The last thing we'll do, as long as we're in here, let's move this down, is set the input levels. Let's set the input levels here. Notice on this waveform here, 100 is max. So what I can do is make this a little bit brighter by bringing this up until I start to clip out at the top. You can do the same thing at the bottom, but my blacks look pretty good. So let's leave it that way. And this kind of just spreads the spectrum from 0 to 100. Makes it a little bit brighter. Maybe bring that down a little bit. Okay. So that looks pretty good. Let's use this little eyeball to hide that icon. And let's go ahead and set the white balance now for the GoPro clip. And this should make both the cameras look pretty much equal. So let's turn these off and on. Color looks, yeah, color looks pretty even. Let's bring out my scope again and take a look at this one. So that's already pretty much peaked out, but I can maybe bring this one in a little bit. No, not really. So you usually don't have to mess with this, but this is really the benefit of being in a tool like Adobe, is if you do a lot of live video or if you have different cameras and you want to match them up so they look just right, these kinds of effects really give you the control to make sure that your live footage looks as good as it can. So with that in mind, I'm going to take the GoPro color correction effect, Control C, and just copy it back, assuming my lighting didn't change very much. Okay, now it's all about editing down, getting rid of the junk, and actually making this thing short enough so you guys want to watch it. Paying particular attention to inputs and outputs, what I'm going to do is make sure I have an intro. So let's find the place where I want to begin. Alright, we got to film a video, but as you can see, the set is pretty... I don't know why I was doing this clapping thing, that's kind of annoying. I would probably recut all this stuff, but let's just get rid of this. And then you always want to start off with a dissolve, a dip from black, or in this case we can just do a regular additive dissolve or a cross dissolve. This is great to use this filter, but also get comfortable over here. There's video transitions, dissolve, and let's do a cross dissolve. This will. All right, we got to film a video, but as you can see, the set is pretty messy. Okay, so we're about to transition to a fast move. I'm going to cut on the action, right? We'll do that, and then notice one thing about the GoPro. You see this fisheye effect? What's actually really nice is there are presets in Adobe Premiere to remove the fisheye. In fact, if I look down and find the Hero 3 Plus Black, 2.7K medium, that's exactly what I had. I can just apply that and it will correct it automatically for me. See the difference there? Let's turn that off and on. So I love that. It takes a little bit to process. Notice my timeline up here turned red. That means that there is an effect here that is not fully rendered. So we're going to copy that and paste it to these tracks. Beautiful. Okay, so we got our intro. It's fading in. And then let's take all this junk and we're going to speed it up. Now there are some points in here when I talk to the camera. So let me find those and clip them out first. This might be interesting. Pretty cool 3D print, stuff like this. Let's set this to 1000. The speed duration, of course, will speed it all up. Ripple delete to bring your real clip back, and then throw in a video transition. Maybe since we're kind of going forward in time, we might dip to black, or in this case just a cross dissolve to show that we're kind of switching momentum. A little bit more professional. So you notice this red is really cramping my style. I'm going to turn off my lens distortion for now because that is just killing my performance as I watch this. Again, find a good place right. Oh. And this is the absolute worst when you have to rewire something. But in the long run, it's worth it to make sure you have a clean setting. I suppose it is. I gotta move all that shit back. Again, try and cut in when you're moving. Gives it a sense of momentum. 2000. Make sure I'm cross dissolving. You know, whenever I do a speed up sequence, I like to cross dissolve. Just really shows you're going into a speed up mode. Lets the audience know you're gonna have a little change of momentum.
Seeing the screen.
As I'm kind of listening to this, I'm gonna watch my audio.
Make sure if you're gonna have the
I want my audio to peak out at about
exposed.
-3.
In this case, my monitor is up to 100% brightness for regular use, but if it's gonna be
There's a bunch of junk there I just don't care about. Cut that out. Who cares? And it's a little discontinuous, so we'll do a little cross dissolve. Now, this is the fun part because now I have two separate video at the exact same time already lined up that I can now cut between. So now I have primary footage, which is my DSLR, my production footage, and then I have a B-roll, I'll call it, my secondary footage, which is the GoPro. Okay, so let's do some cuts here between the primary footage and the B-roll, and I'm going to cut during the action, so I'm actually going to just delete this. So now it's showing all this junk, and there we go. So the cut should look good. It's right during the action and zooms in.
At the beginning of every filming, what you want to do is also hold up a white card or a gray card. Again, you can get these on Amazon for just 10.
Remember, we already used that to set the white balance. What I'll do now, since I'm in this footage, the white balance is good. You know, you can set it again if you like, but it should be exactly the same, whether I'm using the white card or the gray card. The point is it has no color in it, right? And so I get the same effect. What I'll also do here is use the motion control to crop a little bit. I still got that speaker, and I want to zoom in a little bit. Maybe since I have that there, let's move this around. I'm also going to off-center a little bit. Being perfectly center actually doesn't look good, so I'm going to go off-center a little bit. And there we go. There's my DSLR.
Also hold up a white card.
Actually, maybe here's good to switch to the B-roll. As I can cut during the action. Come back during more action. And let's just delete that from here. Since I'm doing something off-scene, this should make an interesting cut.
Turn the lighting down and show you what the difference is.
Right? And notice when you cut during the action, you kind of follow the body, follow the arm, and it makes it a little more seamless.
Okay, so now my LED auxiliary key light is a little bit lower, and you can make...
And notice the lighting is a lot better here. It's more even. Let's bring up that scope and see where we are at. Actually pretty good. Not clipping, not bottoming out down there. Looks pretty good. Well, this is a good frame to see the face. Now this looks a little washed out. I don't like the color very much. Let's go ahead and zoom in and see if we can improve this little facial color without me having to go tan. So this is where it's helpful to bring in the three-way color corrector to get a little bit more precise. Three-way meaning you can adjust the color in the shadows, the midtones, and the highlights. And if you look at the output, the Luma, this actually shows you black, white, and then the gray. Okay, so you can actually set these as well, but just I don't even need to do that. Let's just bring this in and let's adjust the mid-tone, maybe add myself a little color. So let me exaggerate. See that nice rosy color? And let me bring up the scope as well. Let's take a look here. Now watch the scope over here. Remember, this is the skin color line, and this is the saturation level of that color. So I can really move around my colors by manipulating this. Right? Obviously that's not going to work. So what I'm going to do is try and bring the line up a little bit along that skin color line. See if I rotate it, let's bring it back. Something like that. Looks pretty good. So the midtones are pretty much your skin. The shadows, I'm not going to mess with those. Undo that. And then the highlights, I mean, you can play with that. But really the highlights look good in white. That's a perfectly white acoustic panel. So it's really the midtones that I'm going to worry about until I get a nice, rich, natural skin tone. And this area can also be artsy. You notice a lot of cinema films, they might do what they call color grading, which is where you add a color effect like blue to be cool or red to be hot. If you watch Traffic, right? Great example. They switch between the orange and the blue in the different storylines. Of course, this is live video. I want to be pretty straight up, but feel free to get creative. The important thing is to get your skin tone looking as natural as possible. And then I always like to A/B just by turning the thing on and off. So off, on, definite improvement. And you can see the red coming out in the waveform here as well. And the important thing is that you're not peaking out. You're not oversaturating. You're not clipping out any of the colors. So we can adjust that a little bit more, but I'm pretty happy. What I want to do now is, since I'm using a DSLR and a GoPro, both of them shoot kind of flat, meaning you want to add in some saturation. I obviously have a long way to go before I'm at the limit here on the scope of my colors. I'm going to go to the top of my three-way and adjust my... actually, let's do it back at the fast color corrector. This will be kind of a global saturation. Let's just increase that, not too high. Obviously, oversaturated, and you can see it's beyond the safe limits. So let's bring that back to maybe 120. I can probably still add more color. 150, and now it's getting a little bit too much to the yellow on my shirt there. Nice Back to the Future shirt, thanks to my girlfriend. A little bit too much, but now it's coming alive, right? But it might be a little too vibrant. Again, this is where you just gotta use your best judgment, make it realistic, and always A/B it by turning it on and off. Is it an improvement? Yeah, definite improvement there. I'm digging that. Very much digging that. So, white balance, skin color, and saturation are the key things. Mid-tone saturation, I might bring that up as well. Try and make my face a little bit more alive here. Again, something you just got to play with. What do you think? A lot more alive, right? Fit that back.
You see the effect on the face.
Yeah, that's looking a lot better. See the GoPro compared now? It's a lot more flat. Alive.
Light is a little bit lower.
Now that I'm looking at this footage, notice it's a little bit off even because my tripod is a cheap Walmart one. Motion, go in here, and let's rotate this -1. That looks pretty good. What sucks now, and I don't know a good way to do this, is that I've adjusted everything on this clip. Maybe you out there know a better way, and I want to apply it back to these clips, which is why I tend to do these things before I start cutting. So what I can do now is take my motion, my color corrector, select Control C, go back here, and then Control V those. Same thing here, delete that, and Control V. Okay, let's also apply three-way now, as long as we're here, back to the GoPro, since it's kind of flat. We'll start by Control-C'ing from my DSLR, since I kind of spent some time tweaking that. And let's paste that on there. That's a good start. Bring up the scope, right? And let's go in there and adjust this. The GoPro is a little bit flat on purpose to allow for secondary grading. The colors actually look really good. But let's maybe up the saturation a little bit, the primary saturation in the fast color correct. A little bit too much. Again, use your best judgment there. Alright, looking good. Let's cut away to another B-roll. You guys are getting the hang now of it. And I'm coming back from changing the light up. And again, as I'm doing the action, right in the middle of the action, we'll cut back there, see what that looks like.
On this side.
And notice also now I'm looking at the colors. Do the colors match? Do the intensities match? You know, it's not perfect, but it's not awful either.
So I think that's a full blast. And now you're probably seeing a very distinct shadow. So if we were making some dramatic film, this might...
By the way, if I was making something dramatic, what I would do here is use a basic brightness and contrast on this one to maybe decrease the exposure a little bit. Maybe increase the contrast. Right now it's really focused on the face, but again, we're not going to do that. Let's just keep it normal.
This might be good.
Okay, again, coming back from the action. Don't need that audio. This right here, let's do a little B-roll. Let's also speed this up because it's boring.
Okay.
Let's cut away as I show the lapel
a nice
mic.
Lapel mic. Right, that'll capture a much...
Just for interest.
That'll capture a much better...
Again, maybe a little cut here. So what I'm going to do is a little trick to almost make it look like I have multiple camera angles. When you give a main point or you're reaching a dramatic moment, you might want to be closer in on the face. So what I'm going to do is cut away as I put back my lapel mic. On the B-roll, and then right before I start speaking again, let's take this and let's use the motion to maybe zoom in and create a little bit more of a close-up shot as I create the conclusion.
That's about it. Welcome to making great video content. I hope you enjoy.
And then we'll cut away from the DSLR and just show a little bit of this as I wrap up, and we'll fade out as maybe I'm getting out. So again, always cutting on the action. Trim off this junk, and let's go ahead and do a dip to black on the GoPro footage. And of course, same thing. What I usually like to do is at the same time that I'm dipping to black, we're gonna go ahead and fade out the audio. If you hold control and click it, you can create a real fade out, which is more of a spline. Now what I need to do is go back and copy my video clips or my video effects across all my assets here. Okay, I have my whole video together. It's about 8 minutes long, so it's definitely trimmed down from the original 28 minutes, right? But again, 8 minutes is kind of long, so this is the hard part. I've done my rough cut. Everything could be good to go. I could produce it. But what I'm going to do is go back and watch it all again. And the moment I get bored or the moment I see something I don't like, I'm going to do an edit. I'm going to do a cut. Alright, I've gone through and edited this down. I made a few corrections, a few snips. I'm at 8:15. You know, it's a lot of good content. It probably is not going to get shorter. And if you're watching this far, hopefully you found that all interesting. Before we render, let's do 3 more things. 1, any kind of visual special effects, such as titling or text boxes. Let's also normalize the audio or master it to the right level. And finally, let's add in some music. And when we talk about music, we'll have to pay particular attention to keyframing, so we'll get into that briefly as well. For titling or text, I can bring in still images. I can even create them using the titler. But you know what I also do that's super simple is just go to PowerPoint, create the text. Maybe we'll add a little shadow to it. And this actually creates a very nice transparent image. So then you take your text box and just copy paste it as an image. Right? I have a picture, right click and save that picture out. It's a transparent PNG, throw it in your project folder. And then down here I have some simple graphics that I can use to introduce myself, as well as maybe a title slide about what we're going to do today. And then of course use motion effect with the clip selected to change the position. There we go. Control C, Control V that position. Alright, so it's about the same. And then transition. Whatever you feel like. Wipe. Classic. Let's turn to the audio. I mentioned briefly in the preliminary part of the editing that the audio should be about -3 dB max. And of course I have a little audio meter here. And as I play through, I see the peaks are about -6, but it's pretty uneven. It's typical vocal uncompressed feed. So if you want to master it very well and get a good level, you can go through and adjust and kind of ride the keyframes. Let's not do that. What I'll do is actually export the entire media and just export the audio as a wave. Okay, so then you get a wave file that you can then bring into an audio editor, such as Audacity or Adobe Audition. If you have the Creative Cloud, use Audition for audio editing. In this case, I took it over to Pro Tools and exported that wave. So without changing anything on the timeline, just bring that wave back in and set up a new one. And I want you to really get good at looking at the waveforms. And the more consistent, the better. You also want to look for peaks. So let's really make the audio big as we're doing this. And you can see the difference in the signal. This is normalized to a good level as I go through the peaks. You can see it's getting up to about -4, -5. Oh, I do a little bit of a peak there. But I put it through a little compressor maximizer limiter on the audio program. Okay, so it's almost exactly at the top without hopefully peaking. So then I'll mute this, and this will become my master audio. Now let's talk about music, especially in the beginning, during the interludes. In my case, I have fast-forward sequences. It'd be nice to have a little music come in there so you don't just hear the squealing fast-forward of a tape. I went to a royalty-free music site and bought a few bed tracks. Just Google audio beds or royalty-free production music. And I have a little bit of a kind of a uplifting rock piano. Let's take a listen.
Hi, welcome to the quick video.
Sounds like an Apple commercial or something. But notice 2 things. One, it's too loud. It's kind of stepping on my vocals. And it comes in a little bit too loud in the beginning as well. So this is where we've got to use keyframes. So you see the white line. That's the effect control for volume. So check this out. Remember the effect control up here on the white balance and the color corrector? This allows me to control the volume property over time. And then notice in Audition there's stopwatches. Any parameter that has a stopwatch can change over time, and when it's blue, that means that it's keyframed on your current setup here. So I'm keyframing the volume to increase and fade in. Okay, so with the music track in there, let's go ahead and adjust the volume using the keyframes. We'll bring the volume down when I begin speaking, and this can be anywhere. You got to feel it. -20 is a good place to start. Alright, and so it'll fade down when I start to speak.
Hi, welcome to the quick video capture and editing tutorial. My name's Brian Zayas.
Yeah, we can make it louder, softer, whatever. The point is that it doesn't override the vocals and it goes with the mood of the video. So I'll let that play, and then what I want to have happen is maybe when I start the first scene, fade the music out. And you got to make a decision. How long should the music go? Should it go through the whole thing? Do I have a track that goes that long? So I'm going to use it as an intro, kind of upbeat. Here's the mode of the intro, and then as we get down to brass tacks in the first scene, fade that down.
All right, we got to film a video, but as you can see, the
Sure, and fade out nice and slow. Okay, here's the first speed section. I'm going that 1000% speed. What I'm going to do is actually use my trim to make markers here, and then here I'm going to raise the volume, whatever, -16. All right, level that makes sense for the video, and then I'm going to use keyframes to fade in to that section. And of course, you don't have to trim it. I just find it easier than making additional key points. So watch this.
It looks a little bit more professional.
So I like my crossfades to kind of mirror the audio fades. And if you want to get super fancy, you can hit Control, and that turns this into more of a exponential, right, or spline based. And you kind of have the spline handle here, and you can make it a little bit more technical, but you know, it's hard to hear the difference when it's that low. So I'll continue on doing that. All right, here's my audio after doing all that keyframing. Took a little bit of time, but now it fades in, fades out properly, and gets louder during the right sections. I also added it in the end as a little outro music in between sections there. And you can see here at the end I do a big swell as it ends. Let's also maybe zoom in there, right? That final emotional impact, the crescendo. Let's zoom in and close it out.
Being wonderful. Good luck, and I can't wait to see what you create. Thanks.
Super impactful, right? So that's it. Your audio is now mastered to the right level. You have some music in there that has the right balance of volume and location. And we're ready to go. Let's render this thing. So I need to render this down now, and that is done by the file export and going to media. Before I do that though, I want to make sure I understand what my source material is. The more that I match my output to my source, the quicker the render is going to be. And I really want to know what's the sequence, what's the source that's most important. And again, this one is right here, my DSLR footage. So I'm going to find that in my project, and let's modify the interpret and see what it is. And this is probably one of the most important things, is it's 23.976 frames per second, or 24 frames per second NTSC with square pixels. Okay? My sequence is 1920 by 1080 at the same frame rate. Okay? Which is why I inserted my DSLR footage first to make sure that it matched that footage. So now let's export the media, and we're going to match sequence settings. Okay? This will show me the source, 1920 by 1080, 23.976 progressive, 1.0 pixel ratio. So I've matched it. I'm actually going to deselect that now and choose my output format. So I want to use the H.264 codec. That's the one that YouTube uses, pretty much what I think is the best one right now. And then the preset of match source with a high bit rate. Everything still matches here. I'm going to check my video. So the resolution's locked to with the checkbox, 23.976. Everything is there. Here's the bit rate, and you can see on the bottom the file size, 611. Obviously, as I move the target bit rate, the file size is going to change. YouTube recommends for 1080 to have, I think, about 10 or 12. I'd have to check. VBR is variable bit rate, so it's going to go through and optimize. CBR is a little faster. In fact, I'm just going to CBR this for time's sake, 12. And yeah, but 800 megabytes, it's a lot, but if I'm going to upload it to YouTube, I want it to be as high quality as possible. I like to use this one, the maximum render quality. I'm not sure exactly what it does, but it's basically like turning on high quality drawing view. It does a lot of good stuff. Audio, make sure that quality is high. 48 kilohertz is good. Bitrate of 320, that's above CD quality. So we should be good. I don't have any captions. That's it. let's throw this on the desktop and export. Now this is going to take a little while, especially because I have some distortion effects. The fisheye remover, for example, in GoPro requires to go frame by frame and do some kind of transformation. So these can sometimes, take an hour or more. So it's good to just plug this bad boy in and go find something fun to do. As the video finishes rendering, let me take the chance to say thank you for sticking around. I'm obviously not a professional editor or even an expert, but I am an enthusiast and I've been editing videos for about 7 years. And every video that I make, I feel it gets better. And I learn a new trick or I apply a new technique. Make sure that you take the chance to practice these skills, capture your knowledge, and produce something wonderful. Good luck, and I can't wait to see what you create. Thanks.